I've been thinking about this a lot lately, probably because it keeps showing up in my work, even when people don't name it directly. They sit across from me, usually a little tired, a little guarded, and they say things like, "I don't think they're attached." They say they're not. And then they pause, because something about the behavior doesn't line up. I don't always explain this well at first, but let me try. Emotional attachment doesn't usually announce itself. It doesn't arrive with clear statements or big emotional displays. Most of the time, it shows up quietly, in ways that even the attached person doesn't fully understand. In my consultations, I often notice this pattern with people in their 30s or 40s, especially those who see themselves as independent or emotionally controlled. They'll say, very confidently, "I'm fine either way." But their body doesn't agree. Their tone tightens when a name is mentioned. Their breathing changes when they describe a certain interaction. They remember details they claim don't matter. And that's usually where I slow the conversation down. Because what most people don't realize is that emotional attachment is not a conscious decision. It's not something you vote on internally. It's a nervous system response. Even after 20 years in practice, this still surprises people when they hear it. You can deny attachment sincerely and still be attached. The brain doesn't ask permission. Once someone becomes emotionally relevant, your nervous system starts tracking them automatically. Not obsessively, not dramatically, just quietly. I remember struggling to put this into words for a patient not long ago. She kept saying, "But I don't want anything from him." And I believed her. Wanting isn't the marker here. Attachment shows up more in reaction than desire. You notice it when someone reacts to your silence more than your presence. When a small shift in your mood affects them disproportionately. When they say they don't care, but still adjust themselves around you. That adjustment is important. We'll talk more about it later, but for now, just sit with this idea. Someone who is not emotionally attached stays internally stable regardless of what you do. Someone who is attached doesn't. They may hide it well. They may even hide it from themselves. But their emotional system has already included you. This isn't romantic. It's not dramatic. It's actually very human. And once you start noticing these patterns, it becomes harder to unsee them. There's something else I often notice once emotional attachment has formed, and it's subtle enough that people usually miss it. Attention starts behaving differently. I remember a man in his early 40s saying to me, almost casually, "I don't think about her that much." And then, in the next 10 minutes, he described her daily routine more accurately than his own. When she tends to reply. When she goes quiet. When her mood shifts. He wasn't trying to prove anything. He actually seemed confused by it. This is one of those moments where I usually pause, because attention tells us a lot. More than words do. When someone becomes emotionally attached, their brain quietly prioritizes that person. Not in an obsessive way, more like a background process that's always running. From a neuroscience point of view, this has to do with how the brain decides what's relevant. I won't get technical here, but essentially, emotionally significant people get flagged. Their signals stand out more. Their absence feels louder. I don't always explain this perfectly, but the simplest way to say it is this. Your nervous system pays attention before you do. People who aren't attached don't monitor. They may notice things, but they don't track patterns unconsciously. They don't register timing, tone, or small changes unless there's a reason. Emotionally attached people do this without meaning to. They notice when your replies shorten. They sense when something is off, even if they can't explain why. And often they feel slightly unsettled by that awareness. What's interesting is that this doesn't always lead to closeness. Sometimes it leads to restraint. I've seen people become quieter around the person they're attached to, more careful, less spontaneous. Not because they're hiding something, but because their brain is constantly adjusting, asking, is this safe? Is this okay? Someone who isn't attached doesn't self-monitor like this. They don't replay conversations later in the evening. They don't wonder if a small comment landed the wrong way. Emotionally attached people often do. And they don't always like that about themselves. They might tell you they're indifferent, and on some level, they believe it. But their attention has already shifted. This is where denial usually lives. Not in lying, but in not connecting the dots. They don't see attention as attachment. But clinically, it often is. When someone's awareness of you feels slightly disproportionate, when they notice you more than they admit, that's not nothing. It's usually the nervous system speaking before the mind is ready to listen. Now here's where most men misunderstand the signal. It's not about where you touch her. It's about whether she allows the touch to stay. In psychology, we call this non-defensive proximity tolerance. When a woman is emotionally guarded, her body reacts before her mind does. She might smile, laugh, even flirt, but her body subtly pulls away. A shoulder shifts. Her torso turns. Her muscles tighten. But when a woman is emotionally open to you, something very different happens. If your hand brushes her upper back, forearm, or the side of her waist, and she doesn't flinch, doesn't pull away, doesn't reposition herself, that's not accidental. That pause, that stillness, is the signal, because the human nervous system is wired to protect personal space. Allowing touch means her subconscious has already decided, you are safe here. And safety is the foundation of desire. Here's something I tell my patients, and it surprises them every time. Women don't fall for confidence first. They fall for emotional regulation. If your touch is calm, grounded, and unhurried, it communicates control, not dominance, control over yourself. And that's what lowers her guard. But there is one specific area that carries even deeper meaning. When a woman allows you to rest your hand between her shoulder blades, you've entered what psychologists call the trust zone. This area is instinctively protected. It's close to the spine, close to the heart, close to vulnerability. Strangers are kept away from it. Friends may pass briefly, but someone she's emotionally opening to, she lets them stay. And if she leans slightly into that touch, that's her body answering a question her mouth hasn't asked yet. This is where most men lose everything without ever realizing it. They feel the signal, the stillness, the closeness, the unspoken permission, and then they rush. Psychologically, this is called premature escalation, when behavior moves faster than emotional safety. From the woman's perspective, something subtle but powerful happens. Her nervous system shifts from trust to evaluation. She starts asking herself, unconsciously, is he reading me or is he trying to take something? And the moment that question appears, attraction begins to drain. Here's the part men rarely hear. A woman doesn't withdraw because you touched her. She withdraws because your energy changed after the touch. Your hand might still be gentle, but your breathing changes. Your posture tightens. Your intention becomes visible. And women are exceptionally sensitive to intention. In my clinical work, I've seen this pattern repeatedly. The man believes he did the right thing. The woman feels she suddenly didn't feel safe. Not physically unsafe, emotionally unsafe. That's the difference. The men who maintain attraction do something counterintuitive. They slow down. They keep their tone relaxed. They don't seek reassurance. They don't check her reaction with their eyes. They act as if the moment is normal. Because confidence isn't proven by moving forward. It's proven by being comfortable staying exactly where you are. Here's a critical psychological truth. If a woman allows touch, and you don't rush to claim it. Her subconscious registers you as selective, not needy. And selectivity is deeply attractive. There's another detail most people miss. If she adjusts her body closer after the touch, even by an inch, that's her nervous system rewarding restraint. But if she pulls away slightly and you immediately try again, you've crossed from awareness into pressure. Pressure kills polarity. I don't always explain this part well, but I'll try. Most emotional tests aren't intentional. She's not sitting there thinking, let me see if he's emotionally attached to me. It's her nervous system doing what it's designed to do, checking for consistency. One of the most common tests is withdrawal. She becomes a little quieter. Her replies shorten. She delays responding. Nothing dramatic. Clinically, this is her autonomic nervous system asking a simple question. Does he remain emotionally regulated when I'm not giving? If someone is not emotionally attached, their system stays stable. If they are attached but insecure, anxiety spikes immediately. Here's what that looks like in real life. Men who aren't emotionally attached don't change much. Their tone stays the same. They don't chase clarity. They don't fill silence. Men who are emotionally attached but denying it will do something subtle. They try to restore closeness without admitting they need it. Extra messages, unnecessary explanations, light jokes that carry tension underneath, and women feel that tension instantly. I've had patients, women in their late 20s, early 30s, describe it almost the same way every time. I don't know why, but I suddenly felt like I had the power. That feeling doesn't come from dominance. It comes from emotional leverage. Another quiet test involves vulnerability mismatch. She'll share something slightly personal, not traumatic, not deep, just enough to see what happens. A bad day, a family irritation, a moment of self-doubt. If you immediately try to fix it, reframe it, or minimize it, her system closes. Not because you were unkind, but because fixing skips attunement. If you become overly serious or intense, she also closes, because intensity without intimacy feels unsafe. The response that passes the test is surprisingly simple. You stay present. You don't solve. You don't deepen it artificially. You let it land. This is where emotional attachment quietly reveals itself. People who are emotionally attached struggle with neutral presence. They want the moment to mean something. They want confirmation. People who are grounded allow moments to exist without ownership. And paradoxically, that restraint deepens attachment on her side. There's one last test that happens when she senses emotional attachment forming. She watches what you do after closeness, not during it. Do you pull back in panic? Do you push forward in urgency? Or do you remain steady? Steadiness is rare, and the nervous system recognizes rarity immediately. This is the part that still catches me off guard sometimes. Even after years of listening to people talk about their relationships, their feelings, their non-feelings, denial is rarely about deception. It's about self-protection. When someone says, I'm not emotionally attached, what I usually hear underneath is, I don't feel safe enough to admit how much this matters. Emotionally attached people experience a very specific internal conflict. On one side, there's genuine connection, comfort, familiarity, regulation. Their nervous system settles when you're around. On the other side, there's fear, loss of control, fear of dependence, fear of being seen needing someone. The brain doesn't like holding those two truths at once, so it resolves the conflict with denial. I remember a man in his early 40s, successful, calm on the surface, who kept repeating, almost mechanically, I'm not attached. I just enjoy her company. But every time she pulled away, his sleep deteriorated. His appetite changed. His body reacted long before his words caught up. That's the thing we don't talk about enough. The body tells the truth first. When someone is emotionally attached, even in denial, their stress response becomes person-specific. They're not anxious in general. They're anxious about you. Your silence feels heavier than other people's silence. Your approval carries more weight than they want to admit. Your mood subtly shapes theirs. And this creates shame, because emotional attachment is still deeply misunderstood, especially in adults. People associate it with weakness, neediness, loss of autonomy, so they intellectualize it. They call it habit, routine, convenience, chemistry without meaning. But attachment isn't about drama or obsession. It's about regulation. If your presence lowers their baseline stress, even slightly, attachment has already formed. Another sign of denial is over rational explanation. They explain why they're not attached in great detail. They list reasons. They sound convincing. People who truly aren't attached don't need to explain it. They just aren't. Over-explanation is the mind trying to outrun the body. And then there's the most uncomfortable truth, one I say very gently in sessions. People deny emotional attachment most fiercely when they sense it gives someone else power over them. Not manipulation, just impact. The idea that another person could affect their inner state feels threatening, so they resist it. They minimize it. They argue with themselves. But resistance is still engagement. Indifference doesn't argue. This last part, it's quieter. And honestly, it's the one people overlook the most. Because when emotional attachment is loud, people recognize it. Jealousy, anxiety, chasing, pulling away, and coming back. But when attachment is mature, regulated, and a little guarded, it almost looks like nothing is happening. I've seen this a lot in people in their late 30s, 40s, sometimes older. People who've already been hurt. People who've learned how to function without asking for much. Their attachment doesn't beg. It doesn't demand reassurance. It doesn't create drama. Instead, it shows up in small, almost boring ways. They remember how you take your tea. They notice when your energy is slightly off, not dramatically, just off. They adjust themselves around you without announcing it. And they don't talk about it in sessions when I gently ask, "Do you think you're emotionally attached to this person?" They often pause, not defensive, not emotional, just quiet. And then they say something like, "I don't know." I just factor them in. That sentence alone tells me everything. Emotional attachment, at its core, is about mental inclusion. You exist in their inner planning, their emotional forecasting, their sense of safety. Not in a romantic fantasy way, but in a practical nervous system way. They don't feel the need to possess you. They don't fear losing you constantly, but your absence would register. Not as panic, as disruption. This kind of attachment doesn't announce itself because it's not trying to secure anything. It already feels established internally. And here's something I say carefully, because it can be uncomfortable to hear. People who deny attachment while behaving calmly, consistently, and attentively are often more attached than those who are emotionally reactive. Reactivity can come from insecurity. Quiet consistency comes from emotional integration. Their nervous system has already accepted you, which is why they don't talk about it much, why they don't label it, why they sometimes genuinely believe they're not attached. They're not thinking about it. They're living it. This is also why forcing a verbal confession often backfires. You're asking the mind to name something the body has already normalized. And not everything real needs language to exist. Sometimes emotional attachment is simply this. You matter in a way that doesn't need proving. You influence them without effort. You're part of their internal equilibrium. And if they deny it, that doesn't erase it. It usually just means they've learned to survive without naming their needs out loud. Even after all these years, I still find that quietly human.